On today's episode of Can We Pronounce This Name, we have Glaicad, or Glaicad, or Glaicad. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here to talk about Glaicad, or Glaicad, or as I meant in the intro. I don't know. We'll call him Glaicad. He is a wonderful Sylvan Watcher here. He is a cool champion. I got him in a progressive chance with the 2x, or it wasn't a progressive chance, it was an enhanced chance on the 2x a couple of shard pulled videos ago, and I have been looking forward to building him. So let's go take a look and see what I can do with this dude. First of all, go over his skills. He has a A1 that has a 35% chance, bookable of 50, although I've only got it up to a 40 chance to drop freeze. I don't necessarily think he's going to be great in Fire Knight Hard, but I think I'm going to try him in Fire Knight Hard for maybe a level 6 team just to kind of see if maybe he can help some people out. Overall, he's got a decent kit otherwise, but this is okay. I mean, it might be useful in a couple other pieces of content. I did not build him with a lot of accuracy, however, so I think that that's really going to make this not particularly super useful. Meanwhile, he's got a 4-turn cooldown, increase attack, and perfect veil, both for 2 turns, and then fills the turn meter of all allies by 15%. However, this is not really on a 4-turn, and the reason this is not on a 4-turn is he has a revive that is 40% with 25% turn meter. It's an okay revive, puts increased accuracy and decreased defense on all allies for 3 turns, and then if he doesn't revive anybody, he takes an extra turn. So this is a 4-turn cooldown if it's a revive, 3-turn if it is not. So he does lose a step if he's actually reviving somebody, but then he's reviving somebody, so that's good. But he's also going to be pretty interesting because he provides additional damage to champions under Perfect Veil. And then his second part of this passive, which is really kind of hard to understand, I've misread this several times. Basically, allies under a Perfect Veil will do additional damage to other enemies under Veil or Perfect Veil. How often that's going to proc? Probably not very outside of Arena. He's got some interesting uses. He looks like he should be a good Hydra champion. Unfortunately, I don't have a blessing for them. That would have been great. If I were to go for a blessing for him, I could see Intimidating Presence because he does have a good speed aura. Lightning Cage protects a bunch of buffs, could be good. If I was going to be doing Arena, Temporal Chains might be good, and that does affect Hydra as well, so that's not the worst thing in the world. Definitely would not go Cruelty because he only has the 1 attack. Life Harvest could be good in Arena. Commanding Presence is okay, but if you're going to do Commanding Presence, you might as well do Intimidating Presence. Polymorph maybe for the Arena, but again, he doesn't have a lot of accuracy. Brimstone, but again, he doesn't have a lot of accuracy. So yeah, I probably would lean towards something like Lightning Cage or Intimidating Presence would probably be where I would go for blessings. As far as he's got the aura here, that is the 19% speed aura. That is good. I have built mine in 9-piece protection because he's got 4 buffs, and 9-piece protection provides you with a 75% chance to place a protected buff and 5% additional damage per buff on the wearer. That is a huge amount of additional damage. So he's adding an additional 20% damage in Hydra, plus the additional 10%. Now, the only thing I do worry about is comparing him to a Duchess. One of the things Duchess does is Duchess has a passive that reduces the amount of damage you take. So I am slightly worried that if I use him, I might find that my team is dying a little more often. And so while he does have a good revive, and the revive actually comes back in 3 turns if he's not actually reviving people, it does mean that it slows him down if he's constantly reviving people. And if people are dying a little bit more, it may slow down the run. So we're going to check it out and see how good he is. He's definitely going to be very good. He brings a lot of buffs that are going to be very useful in Hydra. I think he'll be useful in some other content as well. But first, we are going to check him out in Hydra. As far as other builds you may want to deal with him, fast, maybe some high resistance, especially if you're going to go for Arena. In Arena, you probably want to put him in some Stone Skin, maybe Stone Skin and Protection to get some protected buffs out there as well. So 4-piece Stone Skin, 4-piece Protection wouldn't be too bad. You could certainly see him in some Supersonic if you're worried about getting that revive back as well. A couple different options. Overall, he's there probably more as a reviver and a veiler than he is as any kind of other champion in Arena. And in fact, in Arena, what I would probably do is I'd probably set this as his priority A1, or at least the lead off, and then have the revive happen as the second skill, and then number one priority that. Because increase in accuracy, increased defense in Arena, not as good, but it will depend on what champions you've got. Meanwhile, this one here has the turn meter boost, which is actually very nice, as well as the perfect veils on everybody but himself, which can be very good for channeling people in Arena. As far as masteries are concerned, I think these masteries will work fine in Arena and in Hydra. Since he does almost no damage, I did not bother going with the offense tree, although War Master can give you some additional damage. So going down the tree here, I would probably go with the extra crit rate here, extra crit damage, probably sneak over and grab this one for additional damage, and then just go straight down here until I get the War Master. As far as the support tree goes, he's putting out buffs, but he's not really healing, so I just gave him some extra max HP. He doesn't need a lot of accuracy unless you really need that freeze. Increase the value of shield. He doesn't do the shield, but none of these really help because this is additional healing and this is additional HP if he kills an enemy for the first time. I guess I could have done that. That's probably better than the shield one. But if he ends up in something like a blood shield ring, this would be kind of useful. None of these are particularly great because he's not likely to kill anybody either. So that's just not particularly great. Went with rapid response because he's putting out a ton of buffs, so he gets extra turn meters when those buffs go away. Cycle of Magic is always good on support champions. Lore of Steel, always good on support champions. Lasting Gifts, very good to extend those buffs, so we might get 4-turn buffs in some cases, keep that veil up even longer. Spirit Haste is great for a reviver, and then finally I went with Timely Intervention because that will kick up his turn meter when people getting low to either put protective buffs on them, or if they get dead, well, then he can revive them. So, and meanwhile in defense, if I was going PvP focused, I would probably go more down the Defiant route and grab this one here for the critical damage. Instead, I grab the defense because it's a little more generally useful. Increase the healing and shield he receives, not bad. Decrease damage from AoE attacks, very helpful. I didn't have a lot to do on this row, so the everybody time somebody's healed, he gets some healing as well, so seemed reasonable. Resurgent here, 50% chance to remove a random debuff when they lose max HP. That's good. Reduce damage when they're hit by the same target. That's good for a long fight like Hydra. And then finally, Cycle Revenge. If you get critical hit, you get a chance to get a turn meter boost. So this is probably more useful than Retribution, where he gets a chance to counterattack if he loses a lot of damage. Because again, A1, not particularly a big deal. And meanwhile, Selfless Defender could be okay if you want him to take a bunch of the first damage, but since it's only going to apply for the first couple of hits in a long battle like Hydra, I felt this was slightly a little more useful. So that's kind of what I would do with Masteries. I think I'd probably stick with this support, maybe go with this Exalted Death. Otherwise, defense is probably the best way to go, and I don't think there's a good reason to go much of the offense on this champion. So let's go take a look at the Hydra teams I have built. And I'm going to run a Duchess team, and then I'm going to swap out for Glaicad with no other changes and run both of those as well and see how they run. All right, so this is my Nightmare team. This is Nekmothar. He's in Provoke. I've got Bavald as well. He's in Hex set, so he puts out a bunch of the Hex. I've got Acresia here. She's just there to do damage. I've got an Ugo here, +4 Ugo. Very nice. Gives me the decreased defense as well as the block buffs. Extra healing as well. Probably the biggest healer on this team. We've got Duchess. You prioritize her Spectral Rebirth because otherwise she will do a Shroud of Souls instead of this Spectral Rebirth. Otherwise she'll do her Shroud of Souls normally, not a big deal. And we've got my better Orthorion. And basically I have him where I prioritize his max HP hit first. And then I have him do these buffs. And that gives an extra turn when he does it. But what that means is he basically takes this thing on a 3-turn cooldown and can get it on a 2-turn cooldown instead because he's getting the extra turn here. So he doesn't always get increased attack when he does his Falcon Shot, but it generally does enough damage. Plus we have other boosters here as well for the increased attack that I would rather get that happening more often because max HP hits are huge. Plus it's another person to get out block buffs. So overall, this has been a pretty fun team for me, so I'm going to let it run. And the big reason I've got Ugo and a Thorian with the block damage here is Ugo's healing and cleansing here is clutch, because otherwise we have mostly passive healing from Bavald from the Leech, as well as Bavald does have a heal and a shield that he can throw up as well. And Nekmothar's Leech as well, but we don't have a lot of active healing. So Ugo provides some active healing that tends to keep this team alive. And that's, again, where I'm actually a little worried about swapping out Duchess for Glaicad, because Duchess does have continuous heals on her revive, and she has some damage mitigation with her passive, being the Ethereal Waves here. Decreases damage taken by all allies by AoE attacks by 25%, 15% from bosses. That's actually pretty clutch. Now, we should still get some decreased damage on AoE attacks with the Veils anyway, but Duchess does also have the Veils, so we'll see how this works. But we're going to run this on Nightmare, let this go. I'm going to let it run all the way because, as I mentioned before, damage and survivability are one of the things I'm worried about with Glaicad, so I want to kind of see how he does. All right, so overall, not a particularly bad run, although not a particularly great run either. I have done better runs with this team. I've done 280 million and 220 million since the nerf, so not great. I might have rerun this otherwise, but as I said, I'm trying to just run this as is, see what happens. And to be fair, I can't remember if I intervened in those other runs as well. Quick remove myself so that you can see. Here we go. We've got the Nekmothar damage as well. Bivald, Crezia doing a ton of damage. Thorian doing a bit of damage. Obviously, Duchess is not doing a lot of damage. She does have War Master, so that is definitely a thing. So there's my camera back. And all right, so we're going to do a free regroup here. All right, so into the team setting here. Again, we're not going to change anything else. We are going to make that the first choice, that the second choice. Because we want to make sure that we get this increased accuracy. I think what we may do is we may actually make this a first choice to go to get the Veils. Don't get the Veils up right away either way. So let's just leave it go in this. So this will get the increased accuracy, increased defense, and the increased attack, and the perfect Veils. So we should get some damage decrease from the increased defense, so that will help a bit. So that may replace some of Duchess's damage mitigation. We'll get additional damage from the increased attack. It also means that he supports defense-based champions as well. So if you have a defense-based nuker, he gives you better support than Duchess would otherwise. The only thing we are going to be missing from Duchess that is not in Glaicad's kit is we are going to be missing the block debuffs. So that could be interesting since we don't have a big cleanser on here. We do have Ugo. Hopefully the additional resistance we're going to have, the additional protection we're going to have from turn meter and... Okay. So because we're not going to have block debuffs, we may also struggle to stay alive as well. That's, again, where Ugo staying in as a bit of a cleanser is going to help us as well. Hopefully, the extra turn meter is going to help as well. We'll see how this works. So I'm going to save this, and we'll get this run going. So this run went quite a bit better. As you can see, I did quite a bit more damage with Glaicad here. I'll drop myself out for a second. You can see Nekmo did a little bit more damage. Crezia definitely led the damage. Thorian did a lot of damage as well. Overall, it was a very good result. Definitely ran longer. As I said, one of the things I was worried about was with Duchess, you get some damage mitigation. With Glaicad, however, you get the turn meter increase and you get the damage bonus. And what it looks like what happens is, in this team at least, with the damage bonus, you're killing the heads just a bit faster. This almost went the distance. In fact, I think I was at like 980 turns where I had not gotten the warning on the other team as well. It felt very consistent. It felt very safe. I rarely noticed that people were actually down and dying, and the few cases they were, it was often an Crezia, for example, who was down because she had a reflect damage that she had attacked into and that had killed her, for example. So overall, it ran really well, and I think Glaicad is a great champion. Is he going to be better for Duchess? I really think it's going to depend on your team. I think for teams where you're worried about getting to the damage mark in the first place, I think Duchess will be better for you, because I think Duchess is going to keep your team alive a little bit better. But once you're past just getting the damage and looking to push your account further on, I think adding the extra damage that Glaicad does is going to make your team work a lot better. This is one of the best runs I've had on the updated Hydra ever at this point in time. So overall, I'm very happy with it. So let's take a look and see what other places we can use Glaicad in. So one of the things I like to use my Duchess for is in wave clear. She provides an awful lot of buffs that can help a seer do the wave clear. So I'm going to run this quickly. This is floor 119. It usually takes about 15 turns. I just want to see if I can swap Glaicad in here. So we'll run this pretty quickly. The biggest problem we're going to have, although to be fair, this Duchess has that same problem, is Duchess is currently so fast that she can outrun some of the other champions with the buffs, so she may not have all of her buffs up for that particular second wave. Wasn't an issue. My seer is actually pretty nuts, so that's fine. But it is nice to have the revive. It is nice to have some of the other protections as well. So 21 seconds, 15 turns. We're going to end the team. Swap you out for Glaicad. I don't think I need to actually program him, and we will let this go. And we are going to have to program that, so we'll be right back. All right, so Glaicad is now programmed in with his life stream being the number 1 and the meltwater being number 2. Let's go. There's a ton of buffs up. And there we go. So 2 extra turns, slightly better time. Works about the same. Very useful. Basically means that Glaicad should be a pretty easy sub-in for a Duchess in most situations where you might use a Duchess otherwise. That can be used for wave clear. Certainly for early game, that will be useful for some of your dungeon runs because it'll keep your team alive. Overall, you're getting additional damage. You're not getting quite as much damage mitigation. And otherwise, it's a very similar champion to Duchess, and I think could be a valuable addition to anybody's roster. So hopefully you had fun watching this. Hopefully you've enjoyed me exploring what I could do with a Glaicad, and hopefully this helps you maybe build yours out there. So if you've got any other thoughts, things I could have done to show Glaicad a little bit more, let me know. Otherwise, until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.